the other dog.
Folks, it's my understanding that Ralph is about 8 or 9 minutes away, probably less. So, hang on.
We're not going to have too much time in between this exchange and those back, but maybe that's pretty I didn't have a meeting anyway.
Consequences of corporate handouts on the backs of local, state, and national taxpayers to giant corporations now can say that we told you so. You'll remember that it wasn't that long ago. I chided your foul-speaking mayor about his surrender to Chrysler and then Daimler Chrysler, which at that time had $20 billion in cash, yet demanded that the taxpayers of Toledo clear the land, absorb any environmental liabilities, buy and destroy a neighborhood of 83 homes and 16 small businesses, which now is used not for the plant and not for the staging areas. It's not being used. And this neighborhood was in fact destroyed and expelled. 6 of the people have died, broken hearts, broken neighborhood, and for what? So that Daimler Chrysler could save some money and add to its $20 billion cash hoard. We also predicted that the mayor's assertion that in return for a $281 million local, state, and federal subsidy to Daimler Chrysler, or handout, or giveaway, that the company would retain 4,900 jobs. I knew that there was no requirement for that company to do so, because the agreement that was finally released by the mayor after some prodding with Chrysler provided no binding requirement that that job level be held at 4,900, provided no bond posted to back up the rhetoric of Daimler Chrysler to retain 4,900 jobs. And now we see that the jobs are moving down toward 3,000 and possibly lower, with huge overtime, keeping the workers from their families, producing alarming rates of injury, and keeping the number of jobs down instead of spreading out the hours with more workers. Now, we predicted all this, and it has come to be. And yet, look at the escape from responsibility by the powerful and the politicians. Daimler Chrysler is paying no penalty for this. They're laughing all the way to the bank. And the mayor is looking for a job as athletic director at some college. He's not paying any penalty for this. In other words, what has been imposed on the back of small businesses and homeowners and small taxpayers in Toledo has been no-fault corporation and no-fault local government. And that's what's got to change. That's what we hope that this day will be dedicated to, a resurgence of civic self-confidence by the people here in Toledo to take control of their community, to make it prosperous and just, and to be a beacon for other deindustrialized or ripped off cities around the country, that this kind of corporate sovereignty over what should be the sovereignty of the people will no longer be tolerated, and that the creative efforts of people here in Toledo to address the serious problems of City Hall, of housing, of education, of environment, of public transit, of energy waste, and many other problems which can be addressed if the people are in charge. And if the people are in charge, these problems can be diminished or eliminated. so that the voice of the people will prevail for a government of, by, and for the people, and it'll be a very luminous example for other cities to follow. So I urge as many people as possible to come tonight to the Great Hall at 7 o'clock. The doors open at 6. Look at the many tables there of local citizen groups trying to improve the community here, and hear from speakers who will focus on major national goals that we must achieve, we should have achieved years ago, other Western democracies have achieved, like universal health care, a living wage, an end to corporate welfare as we know it, sustainable, renewable energy, repeal of Taft-Hartley, allow workers to collectively bargain and play Walmart and Kmart, and so many other long overdue improvements in our country for present and future generations to benefit from. We'll see you tonight. Thank you.
We have a special group of people that I want to ask to come down to the stage. Nader's neighbors, come on down here. This family had 3 generations affected and lost 1 family member. Gene Kusmerick? Yeah. How about a picture with Nader's neighbors? And Mr. Nader. We have more of Nader's neighbors. How about get up behind Mr. Nader? How about a nice hand for Ralph? Terry, we're going to take Ralph to the book table. Okay, I think we're ready. Here we go, Santa. Well, you better watch out. You better not cry. Better not pout. I am telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town.
They won't get anything out of the lawsuit. Is basically for the future to prevent this from happening in cities and towns around the country where it's happening every day. Homes, neighborhoods, small businesses are being taken over, demolished by government authority at the behest of these giant corporations who think that they can push anybody around, they can escape their responsibilities to pay their fair share of taxes just because they're big, rich, and powerful.
Do you feel like you lost one?
Ralph Nader stepped into a situation that nobody cared about. You know, if you're building a new plant in an area, everybody's excited because the plant didn't leave the United States. Because I always tell people when one Jeep person loses a job in Toledo, it means about 3 or 4 businesses have to scale down or close. So, and a whole family around that Jeep worker doesn't have health insurance anymore. But in Poletown, interestingly enough, there was a lot of land where they could have built the GM plant right outside the city. But the mayor, of course, wanted the tax revenue inside the city. So they took a sizable amount of homes, I want to say about 600, 12 churches and a hospital. I might be a little off, but I think I'm close. So about 1,400 people were affected by all of that. And fires mysteriously started near the homes of activists, and things got very rough and very awful. And there was one person who stood up and said, let me send my staff, let me have them sleep in your basement, let me have them sleep in the church down the street. There is no reason that we can't draw public attention to this issue. Now, closing a nursing home or a healthcare facility if the care isn't meeting up to standards, we note in the literature, transfer trauma in the elderly drives the death rate up through the roof. So when you close something for inadequate care, the death rate doesn't jump till the move is added to it. The phenomenon is referred to in the literature as transfer trauma in the elderly. But with these land deals, nobody wants to study that, because that would be inconvenient information to have. But today, 7 people are dead that were forced from a 2.5 block area to move out. And it's only been, what, 1.5 or 2 years since they've had to move. Now, if you had a 2.5 block area and 7 people die in it, you know, wouldn't you check the water and you'd make some things, you'd run a checklist in your head to make sure nothing's wrong. Ralph Nader stepped up to the plate when he was in Toledo to speak on mental health. He heard the new G plant was opening, was planning to stay. We were excited, we told him about it, and he said, Julie, we have to help these people. I was embarrassed. I'm a Nader fan. I didn't get it. I didn't understand how much a part of my community I still needed to become. So I'm here tonight to introduce to you first a group of people we call, thanks to Channel 24 News, Nader's Neighbors. Will you guys come up to the front for me? Nader's Neighbors. Go ahead. One of the people lost her husband. That's Carrie's grandmother, Kathy's dad. Jim Triani is here somewhere too. He lost his mom. One of the things they had to do was try to fight while the city kept saying, these are the people standing in the way of the Jeep plant. Kathy's husband worked at the Jeep plant. He wasn't standing in the way. He was thrilled that the plant was going to continue to stay here and provide an income for his family. So when the media gives us the whole story, we do better. When we don't get the whole story, people in our community suffering, we don't know to rise to their defense, to rise with them. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you tonight is how can we begin to help Democracy Rising, Ralph Nader's newest organization. You may be familiar with Public Citizen, 25 years history, fighting for the public good. Ralph Nader starts groups and tries to bring national light to local issues, to build us into a better community. One of the things I want to do tonight is highlight the fact that we can make this work go on. This movement to the next city. Can we do that? That's right. We can, actually. So let me start by saying, if there are 2 groups of us here tonight, this event was not put on without tons of volunteer power. And I'm going to miss some, but I'm going to mention the ones I can remember. Owens Community College, may I say thank you very much. Printed materials, encouragement, sure we can help you do this in 2 weeks, no problem. What a spirit. The Michigan Greens, let's hear it for those guys. Doug Campbell, can you wave at everybody? Doug Campbell is going to be the Michigan Green candidate for governor. And by the way, everybody wants to volunteer. Doug afterwards. We also have to thank Dan Wilkins. If Dan didn't say it, he said to Mr. Nader the first time he met him, Mr. Nader, thanks for your work. I only didn't wear my seatbelt once. We have to also thank Terry Lodge, the law offices that have become the activist office in downtown Toledo. And the only one that didn't say there'll be so much money up front if I help you, to Nader's Neighbors. Don Binkley, the musician you've been hearing in Marquee Sweater, they made the festive movement, I think, of the beginning program. We'd like to introduce to you, there's a gentleman standing at the far end of the stage. That is Conrad Edge, and he is from the equivalent of 60 Minutes in Germany. It's called Day Story, and they're running this whole story about us in January. You see, it appears that the Germans are concerned about how we're treating Americans. How about a hand for the media that didn't show up today? And you have to promise me that you asked Ralph Nader why the letter to the editor in today's Blade was censored. You did not see the entire letter Mr. Nader sent the Toledo Blade 3 days ago. You saw an edited version.
I've followed his career, some through Jeep, and I'm very pleased to have him on the podium, to recognize him for 20 years or more, actually, of remaining true to his beliefs. George?
First thing I want to say is that to all my brothers and sisters from Jeep that are here tonight, whether you like Ralph Nader, whether you dislike Ralph Nader, no matter what you think of Mr. Nader, he told us the truth. That is important. We were fed the big lie that the homes in the Pomeroy neighborhood were set against our jobs at the Jeep plant. We didn't believe Mr. Nader when he said the new Jeep plant will make you lose jobs, not hold on to the jobs. We didn't believe the truth about the loss of jobs. We have a tendency at Jeep, I think, to want to believe pretty lies. A lot of people want to believe pretty lies. But the situation at Jeep is so serious that our bodies are breaking down even though our minds will not accept the truth. There's one holdout from the Jeep neighbors. To me, she is a hero, Kim Blankenship. She holds, thank you, yes, let's give her a hand. She's still fighting. I wish I would have been there 3 years ago. I wish all my brothers and sisters would have, but we saw things wrong. It's their homes or our jobs. We were led to believe that by the, dare I say it, the propaganda machine we have in this town. It's called, it passes for news media. You see, the truth has become subversive. When the Jeep neighbors were the target of this great propaganda machine, we were told they're standing in the way of progress. It's only 80 people. We've got to move ahead, go into the 21st century. Well, now this great propaganda machine wants to devour the lives of thousands of Jeep workers. I say they bit off more than they can chew. And the Jeep workers know that they are the target of the propaganda to turn the outside community against the Jeep workers. And I'll give you some examples. On January 4th, 2001, they were announcing the end of the Cherokee line, which is a standard Jeep product, good seller, and provide a lot of jobs for everybody. Susan Ross Wells told us, don't worry about the thousands of Jeep workers will lose their jobs because there's a job protection plan where the Jeep workers receive 95% of their pay for life. This was reported on Thursday, January 4th at exactly 6:08 p.m. I have the tape if you'd like to see it. It's ridiculous, and every Jeep worker knew it was a lie. It became subversive to ask Jeep workers what they thought about this, because they knew nobody gets paid 95% of their pay for life. And then on February 11th of this year, a program was run on the Editors, which is a talk program on public access television, WGTE and I think WBGU in Bowling Green. The moderator was Mary Lou Johannick. The guests were Professor Michael Dowd, econ professor from UT, and Lloyd Mahaffey, who is the Region 2B director of my labor union, UAW, the UAW, Region 2B director. They said, now we're going to go and talk to a Jeep worker. They did an interview with a man named John Tullis. Yeah, there's a Jeep worker laughing at that. John Tullis is the area manager of the KJ paint shop. He was wearing a t-shirt, a leather jacket looking like the Fonz, talking about, oh yeah, things are going to be great at the new Jeep plant. They can't talk to real Jeep workers. They have to make up fake Jeep workers. And as soon as they talked to this guy, Mary Lou Johannick said, well, there's a happy union member. And Region 2B director said, oh yes, Jeep workers are excited about going to the new plant. Well, we're not excited anymore. We're stressed out because people are working long, long work weeks on overloaded jobs. We have a unique situation in Toledo. Because of the tax abatement situation for Daimler Chrysler, many issues that we would think are purely trade union issues, well, that's between labor and management, like safety and health, or jobs, the number of jobs, that's up to the union and the company to work out. But because the city of Toledo and the taxpayers paid a public ransom for Jeep jobs, it's suddenly your business, not just our business or our union's business.
The cornucopia just goes on and on and on. So it is against this backdrop that 3 years ago when Ralph Nader came to town, Ralph Nader was my hero before then, but he certainly boosted even further in my estimation. He reviewed the 75-page development agreement, realized that it was a fraud, and attempted in a noisy way to point out that there really is no contract here. There really is no quid pro quo here. There's no guarantee that this plant must remain in Toledo for any period of time. They fulfilled their obligation the day that there were 4,400 hourlies on the payroll. With that gloomy estimation, in the middle of a recession, in the middle of the unique possibility that there will be additional layoffs that are recession-related at the Jeep plant, I'd like to introduce an authentic American hero. I call him an American hero because he believes in empowering all of us. Ralph Nader.
Thank you very much, Terry. Every town had a lawyer like Terry, we'd be in a lot better shape. So would Daimler Chrysler. It's nice that you're here, and I want to thank the volunteers who made this possible. It's not easy on a Saturday evening, 10 days before Christmas, to get this number of people here, and that could only be done by a lot of volunteers calling and pamphleting and putting up posters and appealing to the state of Michigan citizens who are here. Of America, do we allow a government to take private homes for low money, demolish them, evict the residents, and give it over to big corporations? You're supposed to only be able to do that to build a highway, or a bridge, or a dam, or a school, or a courthouse, not to give it to a large corporation that wants it for landscaping. Then they said, well, they're going to give us jobs. Well, this was a new one. This is the first time I've seen in the United States where a new plant doesn't create any jobs. It doesn't even retain the jobs that were there. The jobs are going down, down, as the robots take over. As the workers are worked 50, 60 hours a week, worked on a speed-up plan, worked to the level of fatigue, worked to a level where their own safety is at stake. Work to a level where their health is jeopardized. Work to a level where their family life is damaged, so that Daimler Chrysler doesn't have to distribute the work. So they have more workers who work a full week, but not a week and a half. And so we said, there's no binding agreement there. Chrysler got a one-way deal with no reciprocity. And Carty said, well, we're going to cut back the subsidy proportionately. And I said, based on what clause in your agreement, Mayor? Have you heard him cut back the subsidy? Have you heard him say that Chrysler now has to pay a little bit for the school budget, for the police budget, for the fire service, for the transit, for municipal water? No, they're freeloading on your back, and you let them do that. You know why you let them do that? Because you get up every morning, with few exceptions, and you say to yourself, I don't count. I don't have any power. Who's going to listen to me? I'm just one person. I don't get my calls returned. I don't give money to politicians. So I don't matter. So I just have to take it. I just have to swallow it. I have to lump it. And of course, if you do that, and 100 people do that, and 1,000 people here in Toledo do that, and 10,000 citizens do that, and 50,000 citizens do that, then all of you are powerless. All of you are powerless. And what's important to recognize here is that in the coming years, we're going to have very serious problems confronting our country. We're going to have problems that we didn't even dream of. We're going to have opportunities we didn't even dream of. We're going to have huge ethical dilemmas with science, technology, genetic engineering, cloning, the creation of humanoids doing work that human beings today do. Try that one on for size. That's less than 30 years away, if we allow it. The melting of the glaciers, the devastation of our land, the contamination of our air, and how are we going to pass this world on to our children and grandchildren if we don't demonstrate by example, by initiative, by energy, by moral courage, that we're not going to take it anymore, that the people in this country are going to be sovereign. Not the corporations are going to be sovereign. The people in this country are going to run this country. Corporations cannot help themselves because they have a monomaniacal objective of profit maximization and cost reduction on the backs of workers and communities. And because they can't help themselves, we have to help them with strong trade unions, strong law enforcement, strong consumer and environmental groups, strong litigation capacity, strong government regulation, because they know no boundaries. They know no self-restraint. They are driven by that monomaniacal objective that they declare as maximizing profits for their shareholders. And that's why we have to take control. Because these corporations control capital, they control labor, they control our governments, they control so many of our elections, they control our workplace, they control our universities, they control our very childhood. Who do you think's raising kids these days? While the parents are commuting longer and longer, trying to eke out a middle-class standard of living, if they're lucky, with 2 breadwinners. And if they're not so lucky, they're in the lower rung of our economy, desperately trying to pay last month's bills with next month's payday loans. Who do you think is raising our kids? Over 30 hours a week, our children are in the hands of corporate hucksters. Entertainment, videos, TV, over-medication, food. Just think of what happens to these kids now. They are born, and they got Nestle replacing mother's milk with infant formula. They are then over-medicated for any child deviation that only requires love and care by a relative or a patient. KinderCare raises them, McDonald's feeds them, Time Warner entertains them. The military toy business teaches 5-year-old boys how to vaporize their adversaries. The cosmetic industry takes on the 6 and 7-year-old girls. And this is before they reach the addiction industry of drugs and liquor and tobacco. Who's raising our children? These corporations, and they convey 3 value systems. 1, violence is a solution to life's problems. Just look at the shows. 2, low-grade sensuality, from junk food to pornography. And thirdly, addiction as a way of life. Sitting and sitting and sitting as a 7, 8, 9-year-old, eating junk food, watching videos, instead of playing kick the can in the backyard with the fellow kids. So you have the commercial militarists underway, and there are dozens of retired admirals and generals who have been speaking out against these boondoggle weapon systems like the F-22 and the Joint Strike Fighter and the Osprey aircraft, which has crashed in its infancy and killed 34 Marines. It's so defective, they haven't even bought the whole complement yet. And second, you have the autocratic ideologues. These are the forces in our society that are very uncomfortable with democracy. They're very uncomfortable with civic action. They're very uncomfortable with workers and consumers and people, ordinary people, having a voice in this country. You see them all the time and you hear them. Rush Limbaugh is one of them. Rush Limbaugh is an autocrat. He's never had a corporation he's dared to criticize. He beats up on government because government doesn't advertise on his program. Like so many of the right-wing talk show hosts. And you have him in Congress. And you have him as Attorney General. These are people who are autocrats. They're not small d Democrats. And they take advantage of tragedies as they did after World War I and during the Joe McCarthy period and in the Civil War and the Alien Sedition Acts in the late 18th century to constrain or destroy or impair our civil liberties and constitutional freedoms. And the third power block are the corporate greed hounds who are, as we speak, swarming over Capitol Hill in Washington, in Congress, demanding subsidies, bailouts, giveaways, further tax breaks, and limited liability or immunization from the wreckage and the harm that they inflict on innocent people. This is frenzy time, feeding frenzy time. And does anybody call them unpatriotic? Why isn't the corporation called unpatriotic? Why are only individuals called unpatriotic? Because we've allowed corporations to be persons under the law, having all the rights that we have under our Constitution, these artificial legal entities, and all the privileges and immunities that we could never have because we are not artificial legal entities. They can be in 1,000 places at once around the world, proliferate holding companies and subsidiaries and shift and obscure responsibilities. And I think they are very unpatriotic. And we apply in this country, and far more problems than we deserve. And that's because there's too much wealth and too much power in too few hands. The same old story for 3,000 years. Too much wealth and too much power in too few hands undercuts the will and the voice and the rights of the people. And I hope that on your way out you'll stop by the tables, pick up the materials, and help us carry this effort to other cities around the country. And if there are any other ways that we can help you here in Toledo, let us know. And if you don't let us know, Julie Coyle will let us know. Thank you very much.